All right, John. I
Good
didn't
morning. Good
give
morning,
you any.
Todd.
Good morning. How are you?
Great, thanks. How are you?
Excellent. Things are good in Denver. Things good in Ann Arbor.
Yeah, wonderful, wonderful.
Excellent. Yeah. So I'm kind of ambushing you with this question because I didn't give you any preparation time, and I know you spend hours preparing for these videos. Rightly so.
I usually spend at least I'd say seven or eight minutes preparing for your questions. Go ahead.
That's superb. Um, I wondered. You mentored teachers in addition to teaching students.
Yeah, for many
For
years,
years, you
many
did
many
this,
years.
right? At Michigan, and I was curious to know. And it would apply to English, teachers of English or teachers of other topics. But what are some things that messages that you share with young teachers that are just getting their feet wet? They could be grad students, it could be people that want to become teachers, or ones that are kind of thrown into it because they want to get their PhD and go off and do something totally different. And what are some of the mistakes that young teachers will make that may be easy to correct?
Well, first of all, I'm only going to talk about universities or colleges, not high school.
Sure.
But I tell the students well, they used to be called TAs, teaching assistants, and now they're called GSIs, graduate student instructors. But no matter, whoever it was, these were young people who were maybe 23, 24, 25, and they were teaching for the first time. And so I always told them that, one, when you go in the classroom and you don't know, you have no idea what's going to happen, you've never taught before, just realize that the audience, the students, are just as terrified as you are. So it's not at all negative to show that you're a little bit flummoxed with this idea of standing in front of a classroom of 20 or 30 students and teaching them. So I think it's good to show your humility and your humanity by not being afraid to make mistakes. Okay, and then I say I'm not proselytizing my own technique of teaching. I'm just going to offer you what's been successful to me. Take what you want, shit can what you don't want. And so what I want to say is, first of all, talk. Now we're talking about English, not about physics or mathematics. I'm talking about English. But in my writing classes, when I taught at Purdue for 6 years, and it was absolutely horrible. You had to use a textbook, and you had 6 topics. I can't remember. One of them was vivisection. One of them was the death penalty. Who's interested in that? No one at all. So my classes at Purdue, and I liked the kids very much, but they were really, I would say, boring because you had to stick on page, say on the 5th of April, you had to be on page 279 of a book, and it was
There are multiple sections that are going at the same pace, probably.
Yeah, right, exactly. Right. And you had 6 weeks on vivisection, 6 weeks on mercy killing, whatever. It's boring. And kids were really interested. So when I got to Michigan, this woman, a wonderful woman named Lillian Back, who was my mentor, she had this great line. She said, "Make the private public." And by saying "make the private public," you write about things that are of interest to you and that you're an authority on. So I always tell the students that, first of all,
the TAs, you're saying the teachers you'd say this to?
Yeah,
or the students do?
no, the TAs that I had under my aegis.
Right.
So I was
the young teachers, basically.
Yeah, right. But I would say the key word, and I would say this we met once a week for the entire semester, and I visited the classes 2 or 3 times, 4 times a semester, and I would tell them from the very get-go, I would say, listen, and you have to realize that English is divided into 2 parts: literature or literature, which is very important for most people, and then grammar or writing, which is very important to me, but not important to most people, because most people think that writing, rhetoric and composition is a stepchild of literature. But to me, it's very important. So a lot of these kids, they're coming to get a PhD in literature, and they want to talk about Beowulf, and they want to talk about Tolstoy, and they want to talk about Nikos Kazantzakis, my favorite author of the 20th century, except for me. And but the kids aren't interested in that stuff. So what I said, the one thing you got to do, and I told this every meeting, I'd say, no, what's the key? and I would say feign enthusiasm. And I think any teacher has to do that, whether he be teaching or she be teaching physics or math or genetics or geology or whatever it is. Feign enthusiasm. Show the students that you are interested in this, that you find this, excuse me, I lose my voice, that you find the subject matter fascinating. And if you don't find it fascinating, get out, That's my opinion. So I would say feign.
When you feign it, so are you alluding? Is that to say that it's impossible to remain enthusiastic throughout a semester where you're meeting, 25 times on a topic that you've covered 400 times?
No, that's the beauty of my class, the way it was set up. We talked about the key is the human condition. I didn't talk about vivisection or, the other mercy killing or euthanasia. I talked about things that were of interest to the kids. I let them pick subjects of their own. And I said,
but you mentioned feigning enthusiasm as opposed to maintaining enthusiasm.
Well, yeah, but
there's a difference.
But the key is most of these teachers of English, they want to get a PhD in literature, and they want to,
sure,
write a book on how many times Tolstoy used the word family in Anna Karenina or War and Peace or something like that, something bizarre like that. And that's fine if they want to do that, but I never liked that. I never saw any practical utilitarian value in teaching literature, Like I've said many times to you and to others, I said, no, Shakespeare should not be taught until someone is 25 or 30 and has experienced a little bit of life and been, shit on about it multiple times. But anyway, the point is, I think what I did was really valuable because I taught kids how to present their thoughts on paper. At least I tried.
And did you advocate that approach with the TAs also? And did your TAs do that?
Well, yeah. Some people shouldn't be teaching. They're really nice people and they're really smart, but they're not sociopaths, but they're people are different, and some people don't like people and don't like to get in front of people and worry about their appearances. I never gave a shit what I looked like or what I said. I knew that I had something valuable to give these kids.
You look good. You look good.
I have a great joke about that, but it's so dirty I won't tell you. But anyway,
okay.
God, it's a great joke. I wish I could tell you, but it's so disgusting.
Do it.
No, I'm not going to
do it.
Absolutely not. No, it's kind of racist too. But
okay, yeah, that's probably that's over the line then.
Anyway, I'm thinking about my audience.
Good call.
But it's still funny. I'm not a racist, as you well know, but it's still
I know.
a funny joke. But anyway, I want to get back to this, to my class, and just my class alone. The key was one, the human condition. Make the private public. Become an authority because you're going to write about your grandmother's death. The fact that how many times have I had essays about I've met this guy as a freshman in Michigan. He was so handsome. He was so built. He had a great body. He had a tight ass. I mean, this is women like that shit, tight ass. And oh my God, he was so funny and so nice. And I dated him for about 3 or 4 months, but it really wasn't going anyplace. And then I found out he was gay. And I've had about, 5 or 10 essays like that. And so
I must have seen. It must have been interesting. We're getting a little off topic, but to watch the same themes recur and the hyper personal essays, which you got, and maybe we'll do a different video on the human condition, just dedicated to it. But it just, to me, it would have been interesting to be in your shoes. It's almost like an anthropological thing that you could watch these topics recur because of the things that those kids at that age were facing were going to be similar. It was just that across time you had different kids experiencing the same thing in that same window of their lives.
Yeah, we're talking about the human condition, so I never assigned any specific topics. So, and I never knew what they were going to be. So for me, I was enthusiastic the entire time because when I was teaching something that I thought would be of benefit later on in life, when people started moving up the hierarchy of an organization and then became, first you're hired because you got a degree from Michigan and you're with a small team of 6 people, and then 18 months you get promoted, you're with 18 people, and then 3 years later you're with 36 people, and then 10 years later you're with 350 people. And you become a paper person. You can't meet all these 350 or 500 people, 1,000. One of my students has a company, he's got 1,500 people working for him.
Wow.
He becomes a paper person. So I'm trying to teach them how to present themselves on paper as they do in person. And so, but anyway, getting back, I want to emphasize that we talk about the human condition. So it's your human condition, not my human condition. I've never been involved with incest, but many, believe it or not, I mean, I always get every semester for 30 some years. How long did I teach?
You taught for 41 and 42 total.
Yeah,
32,
right.
I think, in Michigan.
Yeah, and 6 or 7 at Purdue, and then at Fulbright to Romania. So that's probably, but anyway, not in Romania. Forget about Romania. That was totally different. But in America,
But you taught
every
at
semester.
Lincoln Memorial.
Oh
so
yeah, that's true. 3 there.
that
So,
was a couple
yeah.
of years. Too.
Yeah. So anyway, many years, but almost every semester, someone would talk about incest, or someone would talk about date rape, or someone would talk about throwing up on a Ferris wheel or something like it. So it was just these funny things, these sad things, these touching things, these horribly difficult things. People want to talk about it. I never signed talk about date rape. I would never sign that. I mean,
it's interesting to me. It as a teacher,
it's the human condition.
approach,
Make the private public. It's the human condition in English.
That's,
can't
you're
do
taking
that
a
in
risk
physics.
there. No, right.
No, I'm not-
Physics,
I'm not-
you have a curriculum you have to follow. They have to understand, the
Yeah, but
equations
I don't
they
assign.
have to
I don't want them. I say, I talk about something that ideally, and the key word is ideally. That is the key word. Ideally illustrates a universal truth or a general principle. Okay, but you can't. You can only get that once in a while. Okay, but the kids talk about whatever is they want to write about. Sometimes will have three people in class that were friends since high school. So one of them will write about a funny story about the other guy and what it shows about friendship and about getting along with people that are different than you. And then one of the same people in the triumvirate would talk about one of the other ones, and then the third one will pick it up and write an essay about something.
Right.
So, but
That
it just
must have been-
depends. But see, I never took a risk because women would write about, for instance, having a breast reduction. You think I would say, "Hey, Miss, why don't you talk about your breast reduction?" Hello, I'd get fired.
instead of vivisection. But
Yeah.
but what I was
No, wait,
kinda
I want you
getting at
to.
is-
But I never, ever assigned a topic in my life except make the private public. I don't want to read something that you've read. It's not a report. And then by making the private public, you become an authoritative source. Now, within that essay, if you want to quote the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, the Washington Post, then you can cite that authoritative source to buttress your experience in the world. But I don't want to have a book report, no. So I never got
Got
in
it.
trouble. I never got in trouble because I never assigned any topics. The kids picked the topics and they could write about whatever they
That in
want.
itself is taking a risk, though, if you think about it from a young teacher's perspective, because what you could end up with, I mean, maybe the guidance of making the private public was solid, and obviously we can talk about the way that the early essays set the tone, and your reaction to those essays set the tone for what actually making the private public means, where you're asking them indirectly, really, to go a little deeper, to give a little bit more of themselves, say, to make this work. But as a young teacher, I could imagine it'd be pretty daunting, because what are you going to get? Are you going to get like what I did on my summer vacation times 20?
No.
And what
no.
it shows me is that you had faith in them, and then they ended up teaching them each other what in general, this is where we're headed with this thing. And then they would pick up on that theme. Not necessarily theme, because the themes were totally different. I've read essays from your students, some of the ones that you'd saved off, and one was about a football player that went on a really funny date, stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
So there was no theme, but the theme of making the private public became very clear.
Yeah. I'm going to go into that. That was a great paper by Henry Poggi. Wonderful,
Yeah, it was.
wonderful writer.
Mm-hmm.
So.
John, you had one more point, and it had to do with enthusiasm. I want to hear what you had to say.
I'm talking just about English TAs or GSIs. Okay, teaching at the college level. Most of these people want to go on and have careers in English, teaching literature, not rhetoric and composition. But you have to do that in your career. So I would say, since you don't like writing, you don't like, and you don't. Most people don't feel confident about common placement or use of semicolon or stuff like that, which seems minor except for the synergistic effect, which we've talked about. So that's why I keep saying, feign enthusiasm. Show the kids that you think this stuff is important. I know it's important because I've been in the world. These are just kids that are 21, 23, 25, 26, getting their PhDs. So they're enthusiastic about literature, or they wouldn't be there, but they're not enthusiastic about composition and rhetoric. So that's why I kept saying feign enthusiasm. And I think you have to do that in anything you're teaching. I think it would be the key words to anyone beginning a PhD program in physics, in genetics, in geology, and mathematics. Feign enthusiasm for your subject matter. And it's infectious. That's all I'm going to have to say.
So the feigned enthusiasm, if it's not real, if you don't have the enthusiasm, pretend you have it, and then maybe the pretend enthusiasm will beget your own enthusiasm and that of your students.
Yes.
Is that fair?
That's exactly right. And with that, I'm just going to say, fuck you.
And you too.
Thank you very much. Fuck you very much.